and dominated by long-time established players. Samuel Felberbaum, the Prinx Chengshan tire of North America. I think you're the president, right?
That is correct, Mike. Yes.
Awesome. Well, welcome. And just jumping right into it to give you a layup question. What's the biggest reality check about entering this market that you've seen the past few years?
Well, first, Mike, thanks for having me on this afternoon. I really appreciate it, allowing me to talk about Prinx Chengshan Tire and our two brands, Fortune and Prinx. I think the biggest thing about getting into this when I started 3.5 years ago was understanding and learning how many different brands there are that play in our segment. I think that to me has been the biggest eye opener, and they continue to issue new DOTs every year. Last year alone, there were 24 new DOTs from plants overseas. That is unbelievable to me.
What does that mean, DOT? You're saying like each plant gets a
special DOT code, right?
Okay.
It's a marking that identifies where the tires are being manufactured.
Okay.
So we have two plants. We have one in Thailand and we have another in China. Each of them have different DOT codes, just as US based manufacturers do, or anyone that manufactures tires. They get a US DOT code and they put that on the sidewall so we can identify who's making the product.
So a lot of brands has been, I guess, the biggest reality check. So was that just driven by tariffs, or no? They've obviously been in plan for a long time, and you can't just start a plant overnight, right?
Yeah, I think they've been in plans for a long time, and there's people want to come and participate and sell product. The largest market is the U.S. market, probably outside of China itself, and if you can make it here, you'll make it anywhere, so to speak.
That's like borrowing the New York quote, right?
That's exactly right, from Frank Sinatra there, right? If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I think the American market is very important to tire manufacturers, both domestically and internationally, to be recognized and known. You need to be successful here in the U.S.
So is it fair to call Prinx a new brand to the U.S. market, the North American market, or newish?
Absolutely. Prinx got here in 2019.
Okay.
And as I indicated in the beginning, we have two brands for North America. We have Prinx and we have Fortune. And our division is responsible for business in the United States and Canada.
So going back to the point of a lot of brands, how do you become the signal amongst the noise, or what have you seen in your experience over the years, the brands that make it and the brands that really just never break through?
I think it's a multifaceted. One is you need to have the right people being out front and meeting with the customers. Number two, you have to produce quality products, right? And at the right price point. And number three, along the way, you have to try to build some brand awareness through your marketing efforts, today, whether that's social media, sponsorships, being on, your podcast or others, and doing things to promote the brands and bringing products to the market that the consumers need. I think those facets all together need to form the picture. You can't have just price, and you can't just have quality. You got to have everything to make the brand start to grow in the market. And it takes time. I can tell you that has been a big challenge. We're growing two brands at the same time. We treat them both equal. I have two kids. I tell them both, I love you both equally. Now, some days I might love one more than the other, but I both love them both. And it's kind of the same with Prinx and Fortune. We love them both. and we're trying to get them both to grow at the same time.
Yeah, I imagine it can't be easy. We get a lot of inquiries from overseas, like folks looking to hire reps, and then we speak with their head of sales, and they say, we're considered a tier 3, 4 brand in the US. We're new, but we're really tier 2, tier 1 quality, right? And they only want to sell at that kind of tier 2, tier 1 pricing. And they come to the US, and I feel like the past couple of years are kind of in for a rude awakening where it's really price driven. So would you, based on what you said, is it like you do have to understand that and make concessions in the beginning to grow, and then over time kind of level up? Is that really the strategy for the up and covers? Well, obviously with some margin protection, right? Not giving it away.
Yeah, I think, for us, our goal is not to be the cheapest.
Okay.
Because when you're the cheapest, there's always someone that can go lower.
Yeah.
That's, to me, short term. What we're trying to do is build long-term strategy to be here in the market. Again, you want to make as much money as you can, but you need to understand where you play and fit in the marketplace. And I think the other thing that I am not a fan of, I don't particularly speak about tiers. Now,
Okay.
I'm not crazy enough to think that Prinx or Fortune is Michelin or Bridgestone, who I've worked for, Michelin specifically, in the past. Okay. And both companies make great products, but we make great products too. But at the same time, I think the customers should decide where it fits within their screen. It's our goal to sell them on the features and benefits of the products and discuss to them what options that we offer, if they use a good, better, best strategy, where we fit. And I think the other thing that's key is the ability to make money. How profitable is our products? If our products are profitable, maybe they consider that tier 1. I don't know, but that should be their decision. I shouldn't pigeonhole our brands of Prinx and Fortune. What we want to make sure is that we offer the right products, the right sizes, at the right price. And if all through 3 arrows are pointing up, then I believe we have a real good shot to increase our business and sell product to those customers.
It sounds like really positioning yourself to really be best in class. What do dealers actually want from manufacturers today in your mind?
Well, I think what they really want, Mike, is they want to be able to develop relationships with people that they can trust that represent the manufacturer. Listen, I've just spent 20 of the past 36 days overseas at our headquarters. Okay, so I look at it that myself and my team are the link to the factory. They need to be able to trust us because the factory isn't here. Okay, so what I tell them, they have to believe is right and correct. Simultaneously, I need to have the right information from the head office on what we're doing, because that is my credibility and my team's credibility. I think they also want to have consistent on-time deliveries, which means that we have to provide consistent on-time fill rate. Fill rate is crucial because in this business, the long sales cycle, if you order today, the product does not arrive 7 days from today if you have domestic manufacturing. It's a long cycle, anywhere between 75 to maybe 120 days. Obviously, the sweet spot is being within 90 to 100 days, and it might be a little bit closer if you're on the West Coast, right? They also want to have new products that meet market demand. We've introduced new AT2. For both brands, we've introduced new all-weather tires for both brands, and both have been very successful getting out of the gate. And finally, look, they want to have price stability. I think, we asked earlier about low price. I think consistent price stability is crucial. And I can tell you that's the hardest thing because we are dependent upon ocean freight, and ocean freight goes up and down on a whim. And even if you have contracts, sometimes they don't accept them, they don't abide by them. So that is really, I think, the biggest thing that the dealers that we deal with in the US and Canada look for today.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. One of the first points that you brought up was really having a great team and the humans really behind the service and connecting them to the dealer. So I know on our side, for example, we set some aggressive goals in 2025 and we faced a lot of headwinds. And um, in terms of keeping up my team's morale, we've actually lowered some of our targets for 2025. How do you deal with really aggressive goal setting from HQ and then stabilize your team with some of the headwinds like we had in 2025?
Yeah, that's a great question because, like you said, there were a lot of things that happened this year that I don't think anyone was prepared for, right? There was anti-dumping, at least in our case. When we started the year, our preliminary was 0, and that changed at the early part of the year. There was discussion about tariffs, right? That started and changed twice, especially on both the PLT, which was separate, then ended up Section 232. TBR started off in Section 301, got moved to 232. So you're right. There are challenges with the targets that we had to do. I can tell you we've been very fortunate here at Prinx Chengshan Tire North America. We had an aggressive target this year. We're going to make it. And that's a credit to our people and our customers that have stuck with us because of the work that my team does face-to-face with the customers, meeting with them. But again, we've worked real hard to take out a lot of the instability of the pricing and remain stable. Now, look, when we've had to go up, we've gone up. And there's not much we can do about it. Those were, governmental changes that we have to abide by. So, and in terms of keeping morale up, look, we try to be upfront with our people, and we keep them informed. We meet every week. We know where the goals are. What we can control are two things. We got to go out and get orders, and we need to control our controllable expense. If we do those two things, everything else will fall in place. That's what they pay me to do, to go wrestle with the home office on all these other items. But really, those are the two main things that we need to do.
I appreciate you sharing that. I think transparency is super important, especially today, right? So you maintain your own team's retention on your own team, and even with your customers from a retention standpoint. So flipping it on the other side, what have you seen companies in terms of like getting it wrong about trust specifically with dealers and winning new accounts and retaining them for the long term?
Well, I don't know that I can speak for other companies, although I've worked for a bunch, but I'll speak for us. Look, for us, Mike, it's a face-to-face business. I think that's one of the great things about the tire business. It's still face-to-face. And our mantra here is that our salespeople are on the road 3 weeks a month. And I can tell you, I do not ask them to do anything that I won't do. I spend 4 weeks on the road each month, working with our people, our home office, and being with the customers. So I think that's really crucial. And you can't, in my opinion, just me, you can't sit behind a computer just emailing and doing Zoom and Teams. Those things, Zoom and Teams, really came to the forefront during the pandemic. And I think they've kind of remained today, and it's nice and quick. You want to get something and you can team somebody and see them face to face. But I still believe you got to be on the road. That's where you can really get the pulse of the customer. You can really understand what's going on in the market. And I think that helps us from our guys feeding that information back to us at the, senior leadership level to allow us to make the right decisions, hopefully, in going forward to meeting the demands of the market.
So yeah, it seems like the traditional boots on the ground, going to see customers from a growth standpoint is really the way to go. What other shifts do you see happening in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years as we forge forward, AI
Well,
or not, in our industry?
yeah, I don't know. I'm sure AI is going to be a part of it. So, and I'm not the most technological guy, so I'll stay away from that piece. But I'm sure it'll help. Look, we're looking at it for some of our operations and bill payments, so that we don't make errors and we can move, payments through faster. But I'll stay away from that. I think there's things we just got to look at, right? Whatever the potential changes could be in government regulations. A couple of years ago, we dealt with 6 ppd, rubber running off into the water, killing the salmon. There's tire stewardship in Canada and now in Connecticut, which relates to tire disposal, right? That the government's trying to transfer back to the manufacturer. There'll be ongoing anti-dumping concerns, right? It'll follow wherever the newest plants go and the volume gets reported. I'm sure that'll be anti-dumping duties will be applied to those countries. Tariffs. Another thing I thought about, because I was just overseas, is natural rubber is a big factor in making tires. And none of us can predict the future, right? On weather changes, too much rain, not enough rain. Will the trees mature fast enough for the amount of rubber needed? So will tire manufacturing have to shift more to synthetic rubber? I don't know, but those are things I think about. Will we have to see potential rolling resistance labels, resistance ratings on tire labels? Something that's bigger in Europe than it is in the US today. I'll be interested to see what happens to the online business. It's beyond its infancy.
Yeah.
It's here to stay.
Yeah.
But, unless you might have the tire tools in your garage, you still need somebody, either brick and mortar or a mobile service, to install those tires. And I think that gives those customers who buy online the opportunity to think the following time when they need a set of tires, maybe they don't do it online. Maybe they go back to the brick and mortar, dealer. So to be determined. And I think on the TBR side of the business, I think driver issues are a big thing. The age drivers are getting older as a industry and aging out, and we need new drivers to come in, because still over, I think it was 74% of all goods in the US are still moved by truck. So we need truck drivers. So I think those are things that I look at.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, just a couple points on your last point. So we had Jared Kugel on from Tire Agent. He's on Ecom.
Yeah.
And he mentioned that we're basically at half the percentage of sales that Europe is for online. So he thinks that there's like a ton of growth opportunity, but it's super interesting to your point. And yeah, like at the end of the day, you still need a mobile installer or a brick and mortar to go to. Most folks aren't going to want to install or be able to put tires on rims, for example, and then install them in their car. From a question for you, I don't know, do you follow or keep a pulse on the EV market? Like Friday, I think it was Friday night for me. I literally was putting on the news and I saw that Ford canceled the F-150. I have a combustible engine F-150, but that was super interesting to see that we're canceling, Ford's canceling the the F-150. So I think as a macro, they were saying that EVs are not really taking on in the US. That kind of forecast has gone down. And this is all anecdotal, right? I'm not really
Sure.
a expert on EV, but from what I understood, EVs kind of are great for the tire industry manufacturer because they in essence don't last as long because they're so heavy. Has there
That's right.
been any chatter that you've heard around like the EV market and its impact on the tire industry, or it's not really?
Look, EV vehicles, I think, have a purpose and a place.
Yeah.
Today, look, it's about 1% of the overall market,
Okay.
but it's 100% of the noise we hear, right?
That's great.
So,
That's so well put.
I mean, that's the honest thing. I mean, hybrids have been around since 1999, and when you combine hybrids and EV, it's like 3% of the market. So the question is, why hasn't it caught on if there's such advancement in it, right? You would think it would catch on because there's fluctuation in fuel prices, right? They go up, they go down. I mean, in California, I was out there 3 weeks ago. It's still over $4.50 a gallon of gas. Now, there's a lot of EV vehicles in California, but I don't know that the grid is set up to support all the EV business here.
Yeah, just
So
incredible to see Ford make such a huge shift in their outlook. That means they're obviously doing that bad. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, a nail in the coffin is this. They're not. It's just a lot of noise. It sounds like the EV
it is
market.
to us. I mean, look, 3 years ago, we had the decision, were we going to make EV tires or 4-season all-weather 3 PMS tires? Now, we chose to go with the all-weather, which I think is the right decision for both brands. And we'll make tires that are EV compatible with lower rolling resistance as we come out with next generation that will work. Just they won't be EV, but they'll be EV compatible. And we think
Sounds like
that
you made
is
the right
good.
play.
We hope so. We hope so.
So Sam, walk away with.
Wow. I think, the lesson is you got to be ready, so to speak. You got to be flexible and you got to be ready to fight. I mean, no one's going to hand you any of this business. You have to go out and compete, and you can't be afraid of competition. You have to pick a path for your company. I think it's really crucial that you have key core values for the company and you stick to those. You make sure that you always are reviewing them, as we do, or I do with our team when we get together for a meeting. I make sure with our leadership team that they're still valid. And that should be the guiding decision making that you do by going back to your core values of the company. So I think that is crucial. And I think you got to be ready to compete. I mean, no one's going to hand it to you and say, hey, you're a nice guy, so let's do some business. You got to come with the right reasons to make customers think about your product and why they should be using it. But again, you got to have high quality, and it has to be profitable for them to sell your brand because they're making an investment too. And you want that to be right.
Awesome. Appreciate you sharing those wise words. So Sam, anyone that maybe is interested in either joining your team or learning more about you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, they, on LinkedIn, I'm there on LinkedIn, or they can reach out to us at sales@prinx.us.com and be happy to catch up and speak with you for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Sam, and want to wish you happy holidays, happy New Year's to your team, your family, and yourself.
Yes, same to you, Mike. Thank you very much for having me today, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to all of you, to you, your family, your listeners, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you this afternoon. Thank you.